Thank you very much. I'll try to share my screen now. Yes, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here and to talk about something that we call in English, I called it the Anthology of Performing Arts Translations. I'm the curator and the initiator of this project, working also there as an editor, as translator actually. And yes, today I would like to tell about the project, the idea, why we came to such a project, how it happened, and what is the content of it, how we process it, and what are the challenges. So why an anthology for the performing arts? So in the last 10, 20 years, we can see that tendencies of global contemporary theater can be observed in Latvia, absolutely. Yes, the problem is only that often we can't really call the name of what is happening. You can see that the artists often are also studying abroad, they are watching the performances, they are reading the texts, normally in English, and they are being influenced by them. But when we talk about some more contemporary, interdisciplinary, maybe some more avant-garde yes, approaches, we often have a lack of terms, and then we are trying to describe it, or often we just use English terms and we say, yes, it's immersive theater, you know, it will happen all around you, or we use some other community-based theater, or there are several terms that we use in English actually, as somehow there's no strong word in Latvian, or at least we have not decided as a community of theater makers, of researchers, that this is the term that we are going to use. So this lack of corresponding language is problematic. Also because I believe that if there is no language, we can't actually talk about many things. And often, and this is something that we are trying to solve in this project as curators, often when there is no language or a term or field which is called in some term, we even don't see such a problem, or we are not really able to talk about it. So yes, and the reason for this lack is that the most essential performing arts texts of the last decades, but also more historic as well, are just not translated into Latvian. And so, as I said, does everyone who reads does it in a foreign language and interpret terminology as they like, which is also beautiful as people are being creative. But on the other hand, we have this problem of not being able to come that easily to one term where we understand the same thing, everyone in Latvian. So this was the reason why we were talking about need of translating the books, the authors that are important for the theater field in the last years. But there were always some challenges. Even as we started this project, we heard from some professionals and academics in the field that actually it's not maybe possible, or it's just too complicated to translate, to get the licenses, the rights, and that someone has tried to do that and it didn't work. But then, as we know, the COVID time came, and also support for different COVID time projects, also in performing arts, which means that actually people can't come together, which is for me, of course, the core of performing arts, of stage arts, coming together and being in one space. It was not possible, but therefore one of the researchers, Liga Ulberta, said, listen, this is the time. This is the time to start this project when we all want to work with the topics that are important in theater, but we have to stay at home maybe it's time to look, or how can we prepare also maybe the processes that will come after the COVID times, exactly with the text, with this idea that we had already before. So a group of experts and institutions came together to work on such collection of translated texts. And here we also see that this project is interesting in different aspects, also in this interdisciplinary aspect, that not only academics, but also I'm more working as a practitioner, as a dramaturg in the field. Also different institutions came together, meaning the Latvian Academy of Culture is the basic platform, which is also producing this project. But together with Academy of Culture, there's also Institute of Literature, Folklore and Art of the University of Latvia that is involved in this project. There's also a theater field magazine, Teātra Vēstnesis. It is NGO Arts Bureau Riga. I'm the representative of it, and involvement of the general performing arts sector, which means that when we started this project, we wished to involve also whole community, whole theater field, those who are working in the field, and we asked them in a survey, what are they reading? What are the texts for them that have been very important? And they also find that exactly these texts, these authors, these ideas should be translated into Latvian so that we can use it, so that they can work with the students and use the text, and so on and so on. I will tell about this survey and the results of it later in my presentation. So, and the core team of the project is, yes, it's curators, that's me, Evarts Melnalksnis, and Dārta Ceriņa, my colleague. We are the curators who are gathering together this information in the survey, but also later we are talking with the people. We are asking also to send us or tell us what is important for them, and also to give maybe very particular texts or authors that people would like to be translated. And we are trying then to put it together and to see which field is covered, which idea is at least somewhere mentioned, because as we understood when we talked at the beginning about the books that should be translated, we understood that this is very complicated task. And as these colleagues told us, it's also almost impossible. At the beginning, this anthology project was also thought as a pilot project. So we would try out what it means to get the licenses, to get the translators, to work as editors on the project, and so on, just to understand, does it work? And actually, in our experience, we found out that it is possible, and it is also a very fruitful process. So yes, that are we curators, and then of course great support by researchers Līga Ulberta, Edita Tišēzere, and Zane Kreitsberga, who are also researchers at the CARD project, which is a national project, and there they are developing a glossary of terminology for theater and stage arts. And this connection, again, some connection between different institutions and different projects. In this case, it's important that the terminology that they are developing together is also already applied to this practical, to this text that really work in different levels with different topics in the field. And our producer, of course, Kristīna Freiberga at the Latvian Academy of Culture. So historically, just a short introduction in the field. In the year 34, there was a book called Theater Art, where selected articles were published. It is a good volume, but it's still nowadays we can look at it only as historic example of what were relevant at the time. You see, after the Second World War, year 46, 40, 51, 54, there are several books by Konstantin Stanislavski translated, whole books, as his aesthetics was fundamentals for the social realistic aesthetics that was also political, of course, political step in the culture after the occupation of Soviet state in Latvia. Also, later, Arvids Grigulis' Theory of Drama and Technique, year 1961, an old beautiful book where we find still some texts that are relevant, and I'm working now on the editing of Bertolt Brecht and his short organon, a great translation actually in year 61. Otherwise, if we look at the book, we see the quotations of Lenin, we see Karl Marx and many Soviet time drama experts. So yes, maybe not the most relevant source for our days. And as Liga Ulberta states, in the post-Soviet period, theater researchers in Latvia were more focusing on theater process in Latvia and abroad, and not that much on theoretical text or translation of them. Reading language also switched from Russian to English, but still students, researchers are reading in another language. And as I said, no fundamental theoretical text translated in the last years since, as you see, 60s. So it's not even half a 50 years ago, or even more, 70. Anyway, so we ask the theater practitioners and researchers what are the topics that they are mostly interested in nowadays. And as you see, of course, post-dramatic theater, no doubts, performance theory, semiotics, drama theory, but then also fields which are in some way connected to the theater or stage arts, and that's feminism, new materialism, posthumanism, and so on. And between the authors that in the survey we found out that are important for the practitioners and theater field in general, that's of course Hans T. Sleeman, Roland Barthes, Erika Fischer. So we see that there are theater researchers like Lehmann, Fischer, Lichte, Patrice Pavie, Peter Jondi, Gustav Freitag, Peter Bruck, and then of course also such philosophers or researchers who are working in fields that are connected to performing arts, as Rosalie Goldberg, who is writing about performance art, as yes, Judith Butler, Claire Bishop, and so on. So we took this pool of ideas of the text as our one of the points that where we started to work. And talking about the content of the anthology now, we can say two parts in it. These are already translated texts that we were researching and found out that we have, as I mentioned already, the short organon by Brecht. We have works by Stanislavski. We have also the manifests by Artaud. We have some Craig's essays and also a speech by Joseph Beuys. These are the texts coming from different times, so we had to bring them together and look how old are the translations, if they really work or they don't. And if they are a bit too old and the language has changed, then we do editing work and we find out the parts of the book, for example, of the book by Stanislavski, that are still very relevant and important for the students. And we worked together with director Dmitry Petrenko, who is also working with students exactly on acting studies. And he was the one that we asked to find out which parts we should take and edit in this updated language from Stanislavski, as we can't edit all the book because of the financial and yeah, mostly financial aspects. And then it's interesting that in our way on doing this all, we also discovered some texts that we can't find in the libraries, that are now not published, but that are actually translated. And this is one of them is text by Jacques Lecoq. I think some 15 years ago, the texts were translated by Bert, also one of the theater researcher. Yes, but at the time, the licenses, this aspect was not solved. Therefore, this book stayed at the shelves at the academy. Some practitioners who were working at the Culture Academy knew about the text, but it was not published for the wider public. So we organized the rights for the texts for the book, and it is already published on our databases. And then also we found out that Latvian director Oidars Kroderis in 60s, apparently he has translated the book by Jerzy Grotowski, Towards a Poor Theater, and we have this in this old style of, you see it here, written in 60s by a machine, many texts, and we will go through it and work with them and find out what could we include into this anthology. And then another part of the content are the new translations. And here are just some of them that we have selected. As you see, of course, the fundamental text by Hans-T. Sleeman, Post-Dramatic Theater, Fischer Lichte, who talks about performance art and the aspects of it in the book, the Transformative Power of Performance. There are also some classics, as Augusto Boal and his Theater of the Oppressed, but mostly we were trying really to concentrate on the contemporary texts, on contemporary issues, also to reflect what is going on already in Latvia. And also as curators, I will talk about curatorial strategies a bit. We also thought about where there are potentialities that maybe are not yet talked about in Latvia, but if we decide that we translate some of those texts with those ideas, maybe we also introduce this discourse, these ideas, this problematic into Latvian discourse. Anyway, there are also great book by Jonathan Burrows, A Choreographer's Handbook. Jonathan Burrows has been also in Latvia, has been visiting Latvia, working here with dancers. It is Florian Malzacher, the great curator, German curator, who is writing about most relevant, most actual topics in the German theater. Gesellschaft Spiele, you see the book that is published, I think, some 2 years ago or a year ago. Tom Sellers writes about the curatorial turn, and we see that in Latvia with the Homo Novus and the great curator Gunda Galaiviņa, curators and producers play an important role in this ecology of theater, and this is something that we can also name. So there is this essay by Tom Seller. And Claire Bishop, who is writing about participatory art, about performative, also aspects. Also, she's criticizing neoliberal order in the UK, and we find that these issues are relevant for Latvia. So there is the first part of the book, the first capital, the first part of the book translated into Latvian. Yes, Heino Goebbels, who writes about what are the status now of the education in stage arts and how it should develop further in the essay Research or Craftsmanship, 9 Theses on the Future of an Education for the Performing Arts. We have taken also the texts by practitioners. As you see, Heino Goebbels is composer and director. Also, Tim Etchells is a director, and he writes about the way how the forced entertainment is making their dramaturgy, how the dramaturgy comes together on different layers in a beautiful essay, which is also as a literature, very beautiful text called Doing Time. And another classics, Jacques Rancière, The Emancipated Spectator, about the role of spectator and his position in theater. And Bojana Kunst writes about, again, the position of artists in the society, and again, in this neoliberal political system. And there are several texts that are criticizing also the hierarchies in the theater, talking about changing the way how the theater is structured, and so on. So I don't know how much time left apparently, but I still would like to go to the databases, as we decided to manage the project firstly to put the text on this databases, and it's accessible for everyone. So this is Garamantas LV. It's the databases which is actually developed by the Latvian University, and you can see. So here we have 26 texts in this collection. Every text, let's say, let's take Tom Sellers. Every text we can look here up. We have here the short introduction. This is a very short. There are also sometimes more information about the text, about the author. And
maybe you need to stop sharing the screen and then share again, maybe.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I will stop sharing. Oh, yeah. Just a second. I have to stop sharing, stop share, and share again. Yes. No. So here it is. I hope you see now the. Yes.
Yes, now we see. Mm-hmm.
Great. So this is the Garamantas, as I said, and here's the collection called Anthology of the Stage Arts. At the beginning we have this. Please not there. Okay. I'm awfully sorry, but the database is really huge. Therefore, this collection is only one of the collections. Again, so we have the works here. We open it up. We have the short introduction about what it is, why it's important, what's the resource, and we have the texts written here, and everyone actually can access it. So yes, very shortly about that, as I think I have to finish, and I will try to go back to my presentation. I wished also to talk shortly about some specific texts that I find important and interesting, but apparently not today. I already gave a little bit insight into what are the topics, but these are just some examples, and there are even more, and we are working on them. So if we talk about challenges very shortly, it's absolutely the question how we curate this, how we make those decisions. I told already that we cooperate with the field, with the sector, and again, I told already that we are looking into the past and looking what is there already, but we are trying also to influence the future, to prepare actually the field for the future. As I said, licenses and rights, at the end, we have found out that it's easy it's not easy, but it's possible to get them and to do the translation into Latvian. Terminology, of course, is a big issue, and we are trying to be creative when I'm working on that, and we are trying to cooperate with the researchers and trying to find the right ones. Lack of translators is absolutely one, especially from German, that we are facing, and it's a big thing that we are working on, often thinking about how to manage. And of course, workload and lack of time, as this work is a huge work, a Titanic, as Liga Ulbert once called it. And I just wanted to show shortly that we have video materials where we ask the translators or researchers to talk shortly about the text. And we have also done a symposium where we invited people again to talk about the text and put them into Latvian context to see how, let's say, Claire Bishop or Florian Malzacher or whoever is relevant for our situation? Where is the similarities? Where are the processes that are actually described in those texts? I won't show the videos now to finish my my presentation. We are now at the last part of working on the last part of content. So as you see, we are looking to translate some more texts, starting with Milo Rau, having classics as Richard Schechner, and trying to react on some very actual issues and topics. We are thinking about curated events, how to disseminate the ideas, how to reach the audience, and also we are planning to publish a book, because it should be once published in a book, apparently in a year or so. So the questions that we are still having, or I'm asking myself, is why this translation process has been until now so scarce. The question is how to reach the audience that would be interested into these translations. I think we are working on that, but still, let's see. I think maybe the book is also an important way how to do that. And the big question is, of course, shouldn't there be a broader national program for such translations, not only in theater or stage arts, but in general in humanities, so that Latvian language stay updated, and also we are in the field keeping up with the processes that are global. Yes, thank you very much for your attention, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Evarts. This topic for me is very important and interesting since I'm at the moment editing the German translation of Lehmann's Posttraumatisches Theater and also working with the terminology group of theater researchers to develop terminology in Estonian performing arts terminology. So actually I have many questions, but we have very little time. I just wanted to comment that the last question you had on the screen, the answer in Estonia is yes. We have a program to finance translations in humanities. We have a special program for humanities and philosophical texts, but in addition, we always get well financed by a cultural endowment, Kultuurkapital. So we are very, very grateful to that. It's very, very important. And in Estonia, I think you also relate to that the lack of people is maybe even the most difficult part, that exactly what you said, that the low workload of people and the lack of translators, exactly the same, that the lack of translators from German. And since German theater thought and the writings are so important, so that's one issue to tackle. I have a question. Do you also plan to publish some of the books printed? I understand that you have a great online site. We don't have such an online. That's a very interesting hint to, or important hint to us as well. But what about publishing the books in paper?
Yes, thank you firstly for your comment. I find beautiful that we have something else again to learn from Estonians. And of course, also in our case, we should say a huge thank you for the Culture Capital Foundation, which is supporting this process very, yes, very in a big, with a huge funding. This is one thing about the book. Yes, we are planning to publish this anthology as a book, and we see that it could happen in the next year, hopefully. I think that will be a selection of the text. Otherwise, I think we would have like 1,000 pages, which is maybe also beautiful, but maybe a bit too big. However, already at the beginning, when we started to think about it, we thought that maybe this anthology could be a bigger process. So we start now with the fragments, we see how it works. And then later, hopefully, we can take those fragments and translate maybe them into books. But we see now also what workload it is, what it means. And as I said at the beginning, we thought about this as a pilot project. We see that it works, but it takes time. So we see that in the next year, there will be the anthology of the fragments, and hopefully in the next 10 years, there will be once in 2 years, a book by one of these great authors.
Thank you so much. It was really interesting to hear and again to compare what are the different Baltic countries doing. Very nice. Our time is up, so thank you, Evarts.
Thank you.
And we will move. Yes, thank you.